to another CONLIFE podcast by MWE Networks on Chronicles of Comic-Con YouTube channel and listening to the podcast wherever it's available. We are sponsored by our friends at darknightstudios.com. Go check them out. They make all of our logos and the amazing graphics we use. They just started their shirt company. If you need branding for when the Comic-Con season starts back up, hit up Dark Knight Studios and they will hook you up. They're professional and fast and amazing, and I don't use anybody but Dark Knight Studios. So this is our Star Wars holiday special, and it wouldn't be special without today's guest, Craig Miller. How are you doing, Craig?
Okay, how are you, sir?
I am doing very well. The coffee just kicked in, as you can tell by that intro. I got my Empire Strikes Back coffee mug going here, which is important to you because that's why we're having you as our guest today. I just purchased your book, Star Wars Memoirs. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. So it should be here by the end of the week, so I get to start reading it. I'm very excited to start going through those pages. Coming from someone who hasn't read a book in about a decade. basically since George R.R. Martin stopped writing them, I still haven't finished the Game of Thrones series, so I haven't picked up a book in like a decade. So yours will be the first book I read, and I was going to buy it from you in person at a Comic-Con, but no telling when the hell that's going to be.
Yeah.
So I was just like, all right, I'm buying it online. We're having them on the show. Let's promote. Let's have some fun. And so I don't want to give away all your best spoilers from the book, but let's definitely talk Star Wars and and talk about the book and some of your experiences, because I just love your stories on Facebook so much. Like, they're just so much fun to read. And okay, so you did the marketing for Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I worked on Star Wars as a consultant and then on staff for 3 years leading up to Empire Strikes Back.
Which is amazing. I mean, you've also, look, I could talk to you for a full hour just about the working on the Dark Crystal and some of the other projects you've worked on too. But, you know, Star Wars, I'm here for Star Wars today because like, here's what the kids, okay, I don't want to get into toxic Star Wars fandom, but it does drive me a little bit crazy that these kids are unappreciative and they're overcritical of the Star Wars. And a lot of the adult fans our age are overcritical of the new Star Wars too, I think. Whereas I'm just appreciative of as a Star Wars lover. The kid in me thought it was over after Return of the Jedi. I did not think we would be living in this golden age of Star Wars era with just this much coming out at us over the years. And
no,
now
who could have possibly imagined?
Well, George Lucas, apparently. But this is the first Christmas where a new Star Wars movie didn't come out. Like, I kind of feel like the last several, 5-6 years, every Christmas has been for me, So what's this like now with being the first year with a Star Wars franchise not coming out, as someone who worked in the industry, and you're a Star Wars fan too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Star Wars fan. There's Star Wars stuff all over the place here, and not just because I was part of it. But no, I was always a science fiction and comics fan before I got involved. That was how I came to get involved with Star Wars. And it's just astonishing. I mean, if you had asked us back in the 70s, would there be people talking about Star Wars 40 years later, everyone would have said you were nuts.
Right?
No one even expected Star Wars, some of us expected Star Wars to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
No one thought it would even be the best, the biggest gross of the year, let alone what it turned out to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just totally amazing to everybody, I think.
Well, and the first one came out as Star Wars, not Star Wars: A New Hope. Like, was there talk of a trilogy on set on the first one?
Not so much a trilogy.
Trilogies didn't even exist back then.
Right. Well, George had visions of doing, if Star Wars was successful, there would be at least one sequel.
Okay.
Um, that was,
The second best movie of all time, in my opinion.
you know, that was in his head. And, you know, he has said at different times that there would be 12 movies or 9 movies.
Ooh.
Very quickly became 9 movies.
Mhm.
But there were a couple of points very early on where it was 12 movies, because that's how many chapters there were in a typical movie serial, which is
Oh,
kind of what he's like in Star Wars too. Um, but then it quickly became 9. And so it was like, you know, hope against hope. Maybe someday they would do all 9.
right.
But I remember sitting in the mixing room with George during Empire Strikes Back, and he said, and he told me he had decided not to do any more Star Wars. He was going to do the third movie,
Hmm.
but he wasn't going to do any other trilogies.
Okay. Was it just that much of a daunting task?
Yeah, I mean, each one took at that time 3 years. Oh, I see you have a friend there.
Yeah, that's Morpheus. Hi, buddy. Usually
Uh,
I lock them out, but they're being needy today.
um, you know, he wasn't going to do the what was supposed to be next was the third trilogy.
All right.
Um, so that's in fact changed the plot of Return of the Jedi, because originally that movie,
Oh. To tell.
see if you get the book, you'd be able to read all this stuff.
I'm going to. I'll have it here by Friday.
Um, originally, the movie that would become Return of the Jedi didn't have a title yet, was going to be about Boba Fett.
Oh.
Boba was set up at the end of Empire. You know, he was this mercenary and he had the frozen Han Solo.
Right. Yeah.
The third movie was going to be about the fight with Boba Fett to get Han Solo back.
The fans would have loved that.
But when George decided he wasn't going to do the next trilogy, the plot of the third trilogy had, in George's mind, was the redemption of Darth Vader and overcoming the Emperor.
Right.
So that whole 3 movie plot had to be compressed and put into Return of the Jedi.
Uh-huh.
And so that's why Boba went from being the main bad guy in that movie as planned to someone who gets bumped into and knocked overboard in the first 10 minutes.
To the worst death of the second coolest movie character of all time. Yeah.
So I mean, that was what was originally going to happen, but there was no longer room for him with redeeming Darth Vader and beating the Emperor. So
you only got so much time in your storytelling in space, and if you're not current on the Mandalorian, spoiler right now, mute this. Hello, we're getting a Boba Fett spinoff anyway that is going to be, if it's anything like the Mandalorian, I'm glad we didn't get the movie, because a whole Boba Fett series is going to be epic and amazing as far as this fan goes. I love my bounty hunters. So yeah, okay. Wow, that's a cool tidbit. I still can't wait to read the book. So whose idea was it to start pushing more kind of comic book themes as far as the marketing goes for Empire?
well, with Empire, you know, obviously it's a lot easier to market The Empire Strikes Back than it was Star Wars.
Name recognition, yeah.
Yeah, well, when Star Wars was scheduled to come out, most of your audience probably isn't old enough to remember that in the 70s, science fiction was not popular.
No, it was not.
It was thought of as a genre for little kids and mostly junk movies. There'd been some A pictures, you know, 2001 and 1968, you know, the first Planet of the Apes movie.
Oh, So good.
Running, but those were pretty much it when it came to A-level science fiction pictures. Everything else was,
Yeah, they weren't blockbusters back then at all.
no, I mean, most of them were coming out of Roger Corman's studio, and those were the high end of science fiction movies. There was a lot of even cheaper, stupider stuff coming out. So selling people on a science fiction movie was a daunting task.
Right.
By Empire, that wasn't an issue. Everyone was into Star Wars. Um, so what we were doing
By
was
that point, I'd been Luke Skywalker for Halloween like 3 years in a row. So yeah.
so by that time, what we were doing was in the 3 years between movies, we were keeping the idea of Star Wars alive. We were doing a lot of stuff to keep people's interest around, and that's why now the comics of course started just before the first movie came out, but they kept going, and there was a lot of other stuff, the licensing, um
Toys. I mean, yeah, because look, the internet didn't exist back then. There was no Facebook, there was no Instagram and Twitter. Like, this was all, the marketing was way different back then compared to what kids are used to these days that are seeing and listening to this right now. So what kind of tools were you using back then?
well, we, obviously, again, no internet, so we had to do things like, there were science fiction and comic conventions. We did a lot of stuff with those, with appearances and that sort of thing. I did a lot of appearances. Gary Kurtz went out. Actors didn't so much go out back then. And of course, conventions weren't nearly as big. Um, the 1979 Comic Con in San Diego, where I did the big promo for Empire Strikes Back, the entire convention was 6,000 people.
Wow.
Today at Comic Con, the main hall, Hall H, holds 6,000 people. And that's a tiny fraction of who's there. Um, so it was a much relatively speaking, lower key. We also did things with bookstores, comic shops, um, and, doing things to work with fans and fanzines as best we could within copyright and trademark restrictions. Um, and we started the official Star Wars fan club, which was under me. I created the fan club.
Oh,
I wrote the first like 3 years, I think, worth of issues of the newsletter. Um,
I did not know that.
yeah, so all of that stuff. And what I was doing was I wasn't writing oh, these are little kids, let's do junk for them. I was writing a newsletter that basically was what I would want to know if I was someone in Ohio or New York or London wanting to know what's going to happen with Star Wars.
Right.
I was in my early 20s, and I knew I had a good feeling still for what teenagers wanted, what people in their 20s wanted.
You knew the fan base was bigger than just children.
Oh, yeah.
Even then.
And that's why it was like interviews with George and Harrison and Irv Kirshner, Tony Daniels, we did articles on the special effects and how they were done, all that kind of stuff. Back then, not having the internet, we were just sending these off into the void. I mean, people joined the fan club, but you have no idea how they're responding to what's going out. Now, in the last 10 years, I've been meeting a lot of people who were members of the fan club.
Ooh, cool.
40 years ago, and they tell me how, it was like their best day of the month was when the envelope would arrive from the Star Wars fan club, and there'd be the new issue of the newsletter.
It came in the mail, kids. In the mail. USPS post office.
Yes, we used to have mail.
It wasn't an email. It came literally as a letter in the mail.
And of course, we worked with this other thing people aren't familiar with anymore, magazines,
Mm,
paper magazines like
yeah.
Starlog and Cinefantastique, um, inter media magazines like Entertainment Weekly, and industry magazines like American Cinematographer, all those different places. We worked with them to, and they worked with us, jointly. We gave them material and kind of helped them shape articles, and they did articles promoting Star Wars and promoting Empire Strikes Back at when it was in production.
Nice. Yeah. And well, and because that was the thing back in the day, like you go magazines were everywhere. They were littered in every office. They were at school. We had magazine subscriptions like crazy at our house. Like, I mean, it was magazines and newspapers. That was where you got your information.
Sure.
That's okay. So, man, that's cool. All right. So you were back in the glory days of special effects when George Lucas was creating special effects magics that quite frankly kids don't appreciate today. Before there was such a thing as CGI, we're talking to early green screen miniatures and all of that. How do you feel about the new Star Wars with so much CGI versus old school?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the guys at ILM were reinventing special effects, creating whole new things, coming up with ways to do stuff, building on stuff that had gone before, but making use of newer technology.
Right. Both visually and audio.
Right. Computers were very, very limited back then.
Very new.
There was no CGI. The most you could do was use it to program cameras to follow the same path when shooting a miniature,
Oh,
so that you
I
could,
didn't even know they could do that back then.
yeah, I mean, it was basically there was a tape cassette that would record the movement of the camera on a track and then reproduce the way it moved repeatedly, so that you could do more than one take on a given thing, but also you could have an X-wing up here and film it, and then you could have one down here and film it, and then later, using an optical printer, you could marry those pieces of film, and you ended up with, you're flying past two X-wings instead of one, all that stuff. But that was all brand new back then.
Yeah, that's a couple clicks of copy and a paste, and you're done with that now.
Yeah. I mean, you just click, duplicate, and it rubber stamps them into whatever position you want. Maybe not quite that simple, but close.
Right.
Um, and CGI is great. You know, you can do a lot of terrific things in it.
Right.
Some CGI doesn't look that good, but some miniature shots didn't look that good. It all depended on the talent of the people involved.
And editing, yeah.
Yeah, and but the stuff it's different. They're different textures, and that's why they still, in some cases, build miniatures and then film them, record them with the computer, and then use those images to compile the finished shots. So it's sort of a combination of CGI and miniature photography. Um,
Which gives you a smoother transition, I think, anyway.
yeah. So I mean, it's not the technology.
It's how
It's
you use it.
right. It's how you use it. It's like writing a novel on a typewriter and writing it at a computer. The machine doesn't make the book better. It's still the talent of the person using the technology.
That's the perfect analogy. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing I talk about a lot is like these kids are so spoiled with the technology and the way everything is gorgeous. Like I remember seeing Jaws 3D in the theater.
Yeah.
And like that movie scared the crap out of me as a kid, and I didn't sleep for a week, didn't shower for like a month, because I was a stupid kid. But at the time, I also remember coming out of the movie thinking, wow, it can't get better than this. This is the best movie experience you can get with 3D and everything, and it can't get better than this. Whereas now, I'm like, I don't miss an opportunity to catch so when Star Wars comes out, I see it 4 times. I see it in IMAX 3D, in regular 3D, and in regular, just so I can compare all 4 versions visually for myself. And they always all hold up, but that's where we've come technology-wise.
I think movies in general, I think some use 3D well, and some it's just there, and they don't, and they're not using it. It and it doesn't add anything. And so their movies, I think it's not worth spending the money to see in 3D. And others where they actually make good use of the 3D as part of the storytelling, as part of the visceral experience.
Right.
So it depends on the film.
Absolutely. And yeah, and that's exact same here. There's only certain movies I will go see in 3D, and it's Marvel, DC, Star Wars, Star Trek, those genres. Anything in those genres I'm seeing in 3D for sure. So like you've been in the industry forever. You've been going to Comic-Cons like before they were a thing. Like, what's one of your favorite things to collect as a collector and a fan?
Oh boy, I collect way too much stuff. Um, One of the things I've got a small collection of, relatively speaking, there's probably 30 or 40 of them, is small toy robots.
Oh, now are these just like individually designed, or are they all robots from movies or TV?
Some of them are from movies, like there's some Robbie the robot.
Mm,
I've got a couple different B9, which is the Lost in Space robot,
yeah,
and some from other movies, and others are just robots.
just cool.
Yeah, they're just cool, and I just kind of like them. And so I have a couple of shelves in my office laden with toy robots. Um, I have, what else do I collect? There's a lot of Star Wars stuff around. Um, I I collect movie posters, so up on my walls, or in my office at least, are a lot of Star Wars movie posters from the early movies.
The classics.
Yes, the classics. Um, the ones you can call Star Wars movies as opposed to sequels or prequels. Star Wars movies. No, I mean they're all Star Wars movies, but those are they're the ones I have the emotional connection.
We're showing our age right now. Yes.
Yeah, but they're the ones I have the emotional connection to. So they're the ones that are up. Um,
and you're right. The original trilogy pulls out an emotional connection in me that brings me back to my childhood that the prequels and the last trilogy just don't do for me. I enjoy them, but they don't bring up that nostalgia. I'm on my dad's lap in the movie theater feeling.
right.
So, but okay, so all right, let's look back into Star Wars then. But like, here we are. It's 2020, and the child in me finally feels fulfilled as an adult, thanks to 2 scenes. Spoilers again, kids. The Darth Vader scene at the end of Rogue One, where he's just fucking up everybody. Just like that's the Darth Vader we've all wanted to see forever. Like, oh my goodness.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, season 2, The Mandalorian. You're current, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I don't care if my listeners are current, as long as you're current. when we get that epic Luke Skywalker moment of him just jacking up those dark stormtroopers and showing that he is a full Jedi now, wielding the Force like a badass, like those are the most two epic Star Wars moments in all of the franchise canon, as far as I'm concerned. Like, how did those make you feel as someone who's been involved since the beginning?
You know, they were great. Especially the Rogue One moment. I also liked
Yeah.
the Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia moments um, in those movies. I thought those were great callbacks to the original films.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I confess I'm not as huge a Mandalorian fan as some people are.
Okay.
It's good, but it doesn't make me crazy.
Gotcha.
I enjoy it, but um, I'm not. It isn't my number one all time
Right.
thing. I think I really think what's interesting. When I was a kid, we'd watch pretty much any science fiction show on TV
Yeah, same.
because there was almost nothing. It was a desert. So even if it was terrible, we'd still watch it because it was the only way we were getting science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
These days, there's so much science fiction on television that you can be choosy. It's like, yeah, it's science fiction, but nah, I don't care. I'm not going to watch that.
Is there anything better than The Expanse right now, though? Like, in your opinion, like besides The Expanse, what are you watching sci-fi that everyone should be paying attention to?
Because I'm not up to date on Expanse. I haven't. Was it? We're going into season 4.
I think season 5 just came out.
5, going into season 5, and I think I've only seen like the first 3 seasons.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're not that far behind though. The first 3 seasons are amazing. Like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just some. But what I was getting to was I worry there's going to be so much Star Wars on television in the next starting a year from now or so that we're going to be going, oh yeah, that's fine, but I don't really watch that. I saw the first episode, but I'm watching this other Star Wars series.
right.
I'm worried it's going to be a little too much all at the same time.
And I could totally see that, but I think at the same time, everything has changed so much, and the fandom has changed so much, especially age-wise. They ain't us. That it's a new experience. It's a new generation, and they're putting out the content for that generation. Star Wars has left us behind. It is no longer made for us.
Well, that we may not be the target audience. I think
still love it and eat it up like it's morning cereal, but
I still enjoy all of it. I'm just hoping they can keep the quality up doing that much stuff all at the same time.
Right. Which, yeah. And I don't know. I love The Mandalorian, and I think the quality has been up there. And the way I see it, like, Rogue One was such a good movie. If there was never ever a Star Wars franchise, that would be Star Wars. Like, that's how I feel about Rogue One, and that's how I feel about The Mandalorian. If Star Wars didn't exist, and this just came out, and this was our introduction into the galaxy of Star Wars, like, this would be it. But I think they've been really smart about the little fandom moments with callbacks from the original trilogy, and with some of the dialogue, and where it's been extremely fan serving for me, but not over the top fan serving, where it's just like, oh, here's a bunch of just fan stuff, and we don't really care about the plot.
Yeah, overall I like the movie Solo, but I thought
it was entertaining.
A little too much fan service.
I agree.
We had to have a funny moment where he gets the name Solo. We couldn't just that be his family name.
Right.
We didn't have a moment where we discover that Skywalker is a nickname because and the other one that I thought was a little too much in Solo was, did we know he had a gun that had emotional?
It used to be a rifle.
Yeah, it's like, I just figured he used whichever blaster was in hand, not that this had some long history of how he got it. You know, I thought those two moments were a little over the top.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree with you, especially on the whole naming of Solo thing. Like, excuse me. That was my biggest problem with The Force Awakens. Like, okay, look, I understand Finn is the beginning of his number and blah, 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 blah. But in the area of social justice and everything, we have a white character naming a black character in a Star Wars movie. Like, how did that slip past everyone?
Um,
Not to get, yeah, not to go down that route, but like that caught me immediately in the movie theater, and I was just like, wow, I'm a little offended by that.
you know, you're the first person I've ever heard mention that. I've had things offend me in that movie, but that wasn't one of them.
I know. I pick things out left and right, and you know, there was lots of issues with that movie for sure. But that was also like very fan serving movie, which gave me the nostalgia of going back to the original. But at the same time, it was like too many callbacks, except for the first time I saw the Millennium Falcon, I actually screamed.
Yeah, well, but part of that, um, Disney wanted, Disney has been, for the most part, from my understanding, arm's length on the Star Wars movies, just as they have been on the Marvel movies.
Right.
But one thing they insisted on was reintroducing everything. Too many people, it was too long, or these modern kids won't necessarily have seen the early movies, so they insisted that everything get reintroduced.
Okay.
So for those of us who were very familiar with the Star Wars universe, it felt like, yeah, okay, we know who Luke Skywalker is, keep going, you know.
Right. It was it's like the old okay, everybody knows Peter Parker's origin story. Just because we got a new actor, we don't need the beginning of his origin story all
That's
over
my
again.
feeling. Can we make a Superman movie without
Yes.
Krypton? Is there anyone on the planet who does not know Superman's origin? Why do we have to do a long origin in every Superman movie?
And if you don't know Bruce Wayne's parents were gunned down by now, then stop watching Batman. Exactly. But that's interesting you brought that up, because I have not actually heard that from any of my industry friends, and that makes a lot of sense, because especially for everyone in the industry and those who want to know the long arm of the great mouse and how they have their hands in everything, and they're extremely picky about production and editing and all that. I didn't realize they were kind of letting Marvel and Star Wars do their own thing so that they could just collect that cheddar.
Yeah, I think it's working, so we'll stay back here.
Right.
You know, as soon as it doesn't work, you'll have more Disney input. And I think a couple of years ago, probably Disney got in a little more, because there were things not playing as well.
Well, plus they're opening a theme park. Things got to line up.
Yeah. Well, Disney's very good at that. You know, but overall, again, this is my understanding.
Right.
I don't work for Lucasfilm anymore. I don't work for Disney anymore.
This is an opinion podcast. We are all good.
It's just my understanding from what I've heard from people.
Right.
The reintroduction, while that was never really stated publicly, I know that to be the case, that they insisted upon that.
Right. Well, and you know, it kind of sucks that they had so many director issues between all three, you know, because that definitely, and writing issues and different people doing it, because that definitely made the last three feel way discombobulated and not congruent.
Yeah, overall, I like the sequels. on a, you know, if you said, is this a good movie? I would say yes.
Yeah. Were you entertained?
Are they perfect? No, they're definitely not perfect.
Right.
There are problems in all of them. Some bigger than others, but overall they're entertaining. I really don't understand the negative fan response, which I put
I
down.
don't either.
I put it down more to the internet effect than actual dissatisfaction with the movies.
Right.
Because they were good. They weren't. They weren't Star Wars. They weren't Empire. But neither was Return of the
Yeah,
Jedi.
I was gonna say nothing is.
You know, um, they had issues. I I wish I wish they had been conceived more cohesively rather than one at a time.
Right.
Um, I their sequences I understand, but I think just make no sense.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
whole casino planet sequence, it's like this is a perfectly fine set piece, but it makes no logical sense.
It
In
went on way too long. If you're just trying to establish that it's like any other, it's like our American society, and there's these people making money off of war, and there's these people suffering and whatnot. I mean, that was easy to establish. It just went on way
Well,
too long.
it's not just that. It's like, first, if you're going to make an alien casino, make it a little more alien than just having exactly the same games we see in Las Vegas. But
Right.
it was very long. Really added nothing to the plot, and it made no sense for our heroes to spend that time when they had this deadly situation on board the ship. All it did was really introduce uh, the Benicio del Toro character,
Hmm.
who seemed to be set up for a major role
It
in the
never showed up.
movie, which never happened. Um, but he he wasn't the guy they were working for, and so they had to figure it out. And they could have gotten captured without him turning them in. So it really added nothing except an extra half hour to the running time. And
And
looked
more BB-8 footage because everybody wants more droid footage.
well, I mean, it looked cool. It would be good in a different movie, but you know, but that doesn't make it a terrible movie. It just makes it less than a perfect movie.
Right. Right.
The sequence itself played fine. Um, it also set up the kids who we see at the end.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Right. Showing that the force is still out there and it exists.
right.
Yeah, yeah. And once again, it's just like those movies seem like a whole lot of fodder and setup for stuff we're never going to see.
Well, maybe now we will be seeing.
Well, and that's, once again, here we're going back to the Mandalorian and Boba Fett and all the spin-offs series. I think they're in good hands with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And the fact that they're working together, because I really enjoyed Clone Wars. Like, I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. I thought it was a really good animation and the storyline was great. Um, and I thought it added to the overall Star Wars canon. And now you see that they're drawing off that into the Mandalorian, and we're about to get Boba Fett. I think everything's moving forward in good hands. But here's what I'm really excited for, because I've always had a long-standing Star Wars theory, and now that we're getting a droid saga spinoff, it kind of validates my long-standing theory that the original trilogy, the prequels, and the last three are not about the Skywalker family, are not about the humans, because the only two characters in all 9 movies are the droids. It's a love story between R2D2 and C3PO.
No, that you're exactly right. I actually mentioned that in the book as well.
Good. I was going to get back to the book.
George originally envisioned it as being the story of the two droids, R2 and 3PO.
I fucking knew it!
Because they'd be the only characters carried through. Because remember, originally,
they're the storytellers.
well, and the movies are so far apart in time. Um, so it was about their journey through all through this history of what's happening. That kind of fell by the wayside, although they still continue in the movies.
Right. Yeah. I feel so validated right now, Craig. Thank you.
Anything to help.
It's the little things in life. But, you know, and that goes back to one of the original promotional, you know, artwork was the droids in front of a galaxy with the Death Star behind them.
Yeah.
Which I bet is on your wall.
No, not that, but
yeah, okay, and so everybody loves the droids and their storyline. So yeah, I'm excited for the little droid saga spin-off because I think that'll be fun for the whole family. Plus, something I was having a conversation with one of my nerdy friends on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, or might have been a month ago, before I was in Facebook jail again for like the 5th time this year. That the movies focus so much on the Jedis versus the Sith that there's an entire galaxy of cast and characters out there of, you know, like the old joke goes, you know, millions of people died on that Death Star, you know, plumbers and construction workers and all of that. And so I'm interested to see where they go with the droid saga, with being able to utilize more of the entire galaxy's cast of characters and see where they go with that.
right. Well, clearly there's, you know, we're following a certain story in the Star Wars movies, but clearly there, you know, 10 million stories in the Naked City. So, you know, there's plenty of stories about other characters, about other times in there. But obviously, just this, you know, I said after watching the Han Solo movie, Solo, that I'd be up for a sequel, but I don't want to see another Han and Chewie caper movie.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see the Kira movie.
Oh.
You know, follow her. Where is she going? What's she doing? She's a really interesting character.
Absolutely. And that was the character I was most interested in the movie to begin with too, and that I was hoping, because I always, in the back of my mind, I always, you know, looked at Han Solo as brokenhearted. Like that's why he's the rogue he is. Somebody broke his heart when he was young. And so to finally kind of get a little tidbit of that, I thought that was the selling moment for me of the Solo movie, plot wise.
Yeah.
Because I love people, and I love hearing their stories and what made them who they are today. And our past is exactly that. And you, sir, have just an amazing, cool, fun past. So
Thank you.
but yeah, in fact, that's why I started ConLife, was to have my con friends come to me, because who knows when the conventions are going to be starting back up. And because of my physical condition, I don't even know if I'll make it to a convention ever again. So I barely made it through the last one in January here in Albuquerque. So I figured, let's have a podcast where I can bring my friends that I've met in the convention scene. And why I bring that up is you're one of the few of my friends over the last 10 years. I actually remember exactly when I met you. You know, like those weekends become such a blur. You meet so many people.
Yeah.
You have so many conversations. I mean, I'm not famous. I don't do anything. You do panels and signings. I moderate a few panels here and there. So like the amount of people you meet over a weekend just gets daunting. What do you miss about convention weekends?
Well, you know, I love people. I love, my whole thing at conventions is, you know, like at Comic-Con in San Diego,
Oh,
I would never stand in line to go to one of the Hall H panels. They're cool, but anything really interesting will be online 10 minutes later. And my thing is, I will spend more time just walking around the exhibit hall, looking at cool stuff, running into friends, meeting new people,
mm-hmm.
and having conversations. That to me is what conventions are about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, going out to lunch with people, going out to dinner with people, hanging out at the bar,
The after parties.
thing. That's to me what I what I really miss about conventions is, yeah, it's fun being on panels and stuff. Um, and weird on those rare occasions when someone asks me for an autograph, more now that I have a book. So now there's actually something to sign. But, I'm not a movie star. It's not like that you expect them to be asked for autographs. But yeah, it's just that's the whole thing I miss.
Yeah.
I
No,
can't,
and you're right. It's the networking, it's the social aspect. And like I always say, what's the fastest way to find a friend at San Diego Comic-Con? Just stand still.
yeah.
They'll walk past you. And the second you're trying to hook up with a friend or find a friend or meet them somewhere, like how often does that happen? Like you never
Yeah. If you arrange to meet, that works usually. But if you say, I'll find you there, it isn't going to happen.
or if you're even texting, like, where are you? Like, and then you end up running into another friend somewhere else. A half an hour conversation goes by there on the other end of the hall.
Yeah. And it's people who haven't been there don't realize the scale of it.
Yeah.
The exhibit hall at Comic Con, not all the meeting rooms, not all the outlying stuff. The exhibit hall itself is approximately 10 acres.
And holds like 150,000 people. And that's not even the exhibitors. That's just guests.
Well, there you can have 150,000 people at the con. I don't know how many people can be in that room, but that's with
Right,
that room filled with tables and booths.
And all the panel rooms. And they've expanded the convention hall like 3 times in the last 15 years just
And
for San Diego Comic-Con.
then they're doing it again.
They have to.
But yeah, I mean, 10 acres, that's a hell of a big space.
It is. It's daunting. And and plus it's 5 days for those of us that, what used to be preview night is now just a regular night, Wednesday through Sunday. And then on top of that, you got the entire city of San Diego that has turned into one giant convention with different things going on, different events here and there at different hotels and whatnot. So like all the walking and everything, after 5 days of that, you're spent for a week. Where I am.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, I've been going to Comic Con, oh God, 46 years now.
Awesome. Only 10 myself.
Yeah. I first went in 1974, which it started in 1970. But you know,
Wow.
it back then I was young and it was small. You were only tired after it, not spent. Now, you know, it's overwhelming emotionally, it's overwhelming physically, because you get up in the morning, you have breakfast, you do things on the floor, you go to parties at night, you're out till 2 and 3 in the morning, and you go back to your room, and then you get up in the morning, and so
Quick shower, quick breakfast, do it all over again. It amazes me that just 5 years ago, because my health and my physical condition now, it amazes me that just barely 5 years ago, I was doing that 5 days in a row on like 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night with the hardcore partying with my friends at night, like, and then filming all day, panels, and running around all over the place like a madman. Like, I don't even know how I was doing that in my late 30s. Oh, anyway, so I'm not doing that anymore. Here we are on CONLIFE, the podcast. Craig, thank you for being here, brother. It's a pleasure to see you face to face.
oh, thank you for having me, man. It's been so long since we've been together.
It's been a few years because I've missed the last couple LA Comic Cons myself when I was living there. So yeah, it's been like 3-4 years since we've actually seen each other face to face. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you and the missus are doing good.
Yeah, thank you.
And now that Conrad has left the con and has invaded the entire world,
Yeah, well,
like
hope,
how are you holding up?
well, we're kind of going stir crazy, I'm a big believer, masks, social distance. I pretty much only go out to doctor appointments. Um,
Same. I got one tomorrow.
yeah, tonight we're actually going to go to one of those neighborhoods here in LA where the entire neighborhood lights up their houses.
Oh, those are cool. Yeah.
And we haven't done it in a few years. We used to go up to this neighborhood and you could walk through the neighborhood. It's like 8 square blocks
Nice.
out in Woodland Hills. Uh,
Oh, oh, yeah. I've driven there. Yeah, I've been there. That place is like famous in Southern California, that neighborhood.
yeah, and so you could drive it or you could walk it. And when we've gone before, we've walked it. But this year, you're not allowed to walk it, and I wouldn't do it anyway. But it'll be good to get out of the house. It'll be good to see some Christmas.
Get
Uh,
some holiday cheer.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. We could, I mean, in 2020, we all need all the cheer we can get right now, for sure. So hopefully moving into 2021, if everybody goes out there and gets vaccinated and we get things back to somewhat normal, maybe by summer we can have a San Diego Comic-Con again.
maybe
Maybe. I'm on the fence on that.
not holding out any hope for summer. Uh,
It depends on too many people doing the right thing. And so far as a country, we've already shown we can't do that.
yeah. Yeah, well, it doesn't help when there are people in different offices at the city and state and national level. Some people say do this, some people say do that. And we really have to get it all together. I mean, I look at Australia and New Zealand where they said
Love New
every
Zealand.
country is going to do this. And now both of those countries have 0 cases of COVID happening.
Well, actually, Australia just had a brand new breakout, and they think it was because of American citizens. So, but I have been to New Zealand, sir, and I recommend everybody travel to New Zealand. Like some of the best food I've ever eaten, some of the most beautiful countryside I've ever seen, and some of the most friendly people on the planet. I love me some New Zealand.
I haven't been to New Zealand, unfortunately. I've worked with companies in New Zealand
Like
doing.
Wetworks,
I'm sorry.
like Wetworks.
No, I did a TV show for an animated show for a toy company down there,
Oh, cool.
and I worked a lot in Australia. Spent time in Australia. Really enjoyed that. Um,
That's on my bucket list. I still need to go there.
Yeah, no, it's a great place to visit. Someday, year from now, maybe we'll all be able to go and travel the way we used to.
Which would be nice to
Yeah,
be able to see convention friends again,
yeah,
and other friends besides my convention friends, just to see humans.
yeah.
To get a hug. Oh my goodness, when was the last time you got a hug from a friend? Oh, it's been forever. But all right, brother, give your wife the best, and love you. Trim that beard, sir. Like you're going COVID crazy.
Yeah, well,
I say that with love because I just trimmed mine like a week ago. But thanks for
take
being
care,
our.
my friend. It's great seeing you.
Yeah, great seeing you. Everybody go check it. Don't even check it out. Go purchase it from Barnes and Nobles or Amazon right now. Be done listening, be done watching this. Go check it out. Star Wars Memoir by
No,
Greg.
no, Star Wars Memories.
Memories. I don't know why I keep calling it memoirs. Memories.
It is a
Star Wars
memoir,
Memories.
but
It
it's
isn't.
Star Wars Memories.
I just like the word memoir. It makes me feel sophisticated. Because I'm not. But yeah, thank you, and thank you to our sponsor, Dark Nyte Studios. Check them out, darknytestudios.com. Follow him on all of his social media. Hit him up to get your shirts made, or if you need a logo, business cards, flyers. The man's a magician and just does all kinds of things. And thank you. Go follow Craig on his Instagram and check out his book. Better yet, buy it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble now. So that way, once the con season starts back up at the end of 2021, you can go find him at a con and get it signed, because that's what I'm going to do. All right. Well, thank you, brother. Much love. We will catch you at a convention floor somewhere down the road.
All right. You take care, man.
All right. Take care. God bless.